Good evening. This is Isaac with Programmable Audio for part five. Are we on part five? Yeah. Part five of Mix with a Newb. All right, tonight we're going to talk about two things, our mix topic and our specific tool. So that's going to be kind of the running theme with my tutorials now. And real quick, I want to point out, you can probably see in the camera my little mic sticking out here. This is a lavalier mic. It's on a little straw boom that I constructed. I'm working on a budget here. So that's sticking in the camera, just so you're wondering. I wanted to get my voice closer to the mic so that the quality of my the voiceover was higher. And also I have different set of headphones on. My other headphones started giving out. The plug at the little jack on my monitors, the plug, it's either the jack or the plug on the headphones itself is getting loose, and it's only giving me left or right. So if I'm going to do any panning or anything like that, it's not going to work. So tonight's topic for mixing, the mix topic, is going to be making things sit together in the mix using EQ. And so naturally the tool is going to be EQ. It's going to be Re-EQ, which is the stock Reaper plugin for EQ. It's the main one. There's a couple different ones that do EQ, but this is the one that's built to do multi-band EQ, right? So I figured what we do next, because we did the rough mix on the drums last episode, that would be episode 4. I want to make sure I got these episodes, the counting, correct. I believe I do. So in episode 4 we did a rough mix of the drums, and I said the point of that was to get the drums to a comfortable place where you can now start throwing things against them, like the bass, which is what we're going to do tonight. And then you can build on that. Guitar, vocals. The thing about these recordings is, in my opinion, the tone of the guitar is very, very good, because he has a great amp. He has an Egnator, and he's got a Strat. His guitar is a Stratocaster. It's just great. So I don't really need to mess with the tones a lot of his guitar. So I feel like as long as I get everything else kind of cleaned up and tidy sounding, I can just kind of like float the guitar in there, and it's gonna fill the sound out and sound great. That's my approach to mixing. It's a personal thing. It's just kind of what I do. You can come up with your own. It's fine. I didn't get that in a book anywhere. It's just kind of my instinct. It's my intuitive way of mixing that I've come up with while working on this album. And let me state again, in case you're just jumping in on episode 5 for some reason, this is the song Digging Holes. It's by my band, former band, Green Wire. We're a 3-piece trio. So it's got vocals, guitar, bass guitar, and drums. Power trio, I guess you'd call it. So tonight, let's get started. What I want to do is I want to put EQ on the kick bus. So we're going to affect the kick drum. So again, we hit the FX button here, which already has, this one's already lit up because we have the gate going on. If you go back to episode 2, you'll learn how to put the gate on there. So we're going to do add right here. And okay, I've already got it filtering. Again, quick filter is the best tool you can use. If you do REA, here's everything that comes with Reaper. That's the Reaper suite of plugins. We have the compressor, control, delay, EQ. The one we want is just Re-EQ. Now, like I said, a couple of these other ones will do EQ, most notably Refer, F-I-R. Where's Refer? There it is. Refer does, see how it says FFT EQ plus dynamic processor? And some of these other ones will also let you do some little bit of EQ. This X compressor is a multi-band compressor, so it does let you affect things with an EQ, with a slant to EQ. I think that's actually going to be it for as far as how to mess with EQ, how to alter EQ. Okay, so let's put Re-EQ on here. So this is what it looks like. I'll briefly go over these features. Here we have these default 4 points put in, okay? And at the top we have our drop down. We'll come back to this because I am going to use some of these presets and then change them, which is something that I've preached about maybe twice now. The presets that come with Reaper are awesome, but you don't want to just throw one on there and leave it. You do need to adjust it according to what's in your project, what's on that track. Down here we have the frequency slider. So as you see, I have number 1 highlighted, that's why it's red. As I slide the frequency, it slides left and right. So on this chart here, frequency would be left and right, and amplitude would be on the left. So you have your 0, your theoretical, the most that the system can put out theoretically, I guess, is what 0 is supposed to be. We've got -6 here. So, and I think at the very bottom would be -12. Okay, so here's our gain. So again, if we slide this one up and down, it's changing the amplitude, the gain. And then our band width, which tells you how wide of a scoop or bell, how wide is the shape of the point. And we also have this drop down here which lets you change what type of point it is. So this one's set to low shelf, and the point of this very first one is that it lets you immediately, if you need to, you can drop all the low frequencies out. So we do that something like this, and then this bandwidth would let you sculpt the way that looks. So you could do something drastic like this. You could roll this, and so if you set this to, let's say 40. Oftentimes you want to like roll off everything below 40. It's a number I keep hearing. Okay, so that's what this would look like. You notice this curve here, it kind of peaks here. EQ has a strange sort of behavior that I'll talk briefly about, and only briefly because I don't fully understand it yet. I too kind of get the concept in general. So continuing on demonstrating the functions of re-EQ, this number 4 point is set to a high shelf, which is just the opposite of that low shelf, and it's going to cut off everything. You're making a drastic cut to the high end like this, and then again you can change the shape of it. Okay, so let's we're going to reset to factory. If you ever do anything like that and you get lost, you don't know what you did, and instead of trying to reset it back manually, just do the drop down and do reset to factory. All right, so this is on our kick bus, so let's look at these presets, and we're going to go ahead and pick kick. Basic 11 band kick. Boom. This is somebody else's idea of how a kick drum should be EQ'd. Okay, good chance that this is solid, because it probably came from someone who knows what they're doing better than I do. That's not a noob or a higher level noob. All right, so what we see here is they put this dramatic dip here at 400 hertz. They dropped this by -6.1 dB. Okay, they put a boost here at 50. They boosted it by 20. Okay, and then you can read the bandwidth too, which tells you how much of a scoop this is. If you mess with this, it changes it to more pointy, which is more narrow of a cut or boost, or wider, and you can see that alters the shape. I forget where it was, but I think it's somewhere right here. Yeah, it was like right around 1, I thought. 1.1? 1.01. Okay, we'll leave it right at 1. So again, this is the stock one. We'll go ahead and listen to what it sounds like. Just throwing it on there without changing it much. I think I did change that curve, but that's going to be okay. So we're going to hit solo. Now I'm going to bypass it. So I'm going to put my headphones all the way on. I'm going to do my best to just keep talking naturally and not, yell, sound like an ogre. Okay, so honestly, the difference isn't that noticeable to me, and that's fine. The key here is what we see is that the kick drum is dominating at 50 hertz. Okay, The other thing, what I want to do here, I'm going to add another layer of REQ, and this is something you can get used to, is just, you can use 2 of them in a row, so that one, like I could add another point here below 1 and do this. I am gonna roll off all those low frequencies at about 40 here, and I'm gonna try to make this bandwidth so that it's not interfering too much with that. See how the 2 curves should complement each other, whereas if I have this too wide, then I'm making sort of a cut where that boost is on the EQ before it. Okay, so I'm rolling everything off below 39.6. This is just from experience that will sound much better, at least in my car. And my monitors don't go below 40, so unless I had a sub to work with, there's no point in having this frequency even in the mix. And I suspect even if I was equipped to listen at 40, below 40, I would not be able to get the mix sounding great down there. So for an amateur mix, this is how I do it. I roll off 40 or 39.6 and below. So you can just type this right in here. Let's just type 40 right in there, and it'll go right to 40. Okay. All right, so our kick bus now is EQ'd, and let's go to our bass bus, and the same thing. This has the audio statistics from episode, come on brain, it's episode 3, but there's 2 parts to it because the first one was I was fumbling around a lot. I'm gonna go ahead and remove it for now. It's fine. Put our first EQ on there. Now, again, we're gonna go to the drop down and we're gonna look at this 11 band rock bass. And what you should be able to notice right away is that the way that they're cut, the 2 side by side. On the left here we have our kick bus, so that's the kick drum, and we have our bass over here. They are not boosted or they're not boosted in the same places or cut in the same places. So that's looking at these 2 side by side and knowing that these are defaults set by somebody else that knows what they're doing more than I do, or actually does know, might be a trained professional, someone who went to school perhaps. The way that they made these boosts and cuts is so that these two voices in the mix sit together well. Now, this might not be what I end up using in the end. I may change some of these. In fact, one thing we could look at, I did want to just cover bass and kick, but if we want to put the final piece in here, let's open up the guitar. Okay, see, I've already EQ'd the guitar ahead of time. I think just out of instinct, actually I'm going to reset this to default to see. I may have tweaked some of those changes. That may have been in my rough mix. That may have been in between recording tutorials. I don't remember, but I had thrown an EQ on that bus. So let's open up the same one I had, Fender or Mesa. All right, and that has to do with the amp, I believe. So we throw that on there, and I think that was pretty much exactly the way. I hadn't messed with any of that. So for a rough mix, I open it up, I throw a default setting on there, which I keep cautioning you not to do. But if it's a rough mix, that's okay, because you're going to change that later. So there's nothing wrong with just throwing it on for a rough mix. But what we see here, the final piece of this puzzle, is the guitar has a drastic cut at 100 hertz. The kick is boosted at 50 hertz. And the bass is boosted at 100 hertz. So this setting gets the guitar way, way out of the way at 100 hertz to let the energy of the bass and the kick come through. And if you just kind of glance between the two, here's guitar up top, because it's kind of hard to read up here. If I highlight on it, then the lettering, the font is black, but when I'm clicked off of it, it's sort of like grayed out. So here's my bass on the bottom right, guitar at the top center, kick bus at the far left. And just kind of glance over these curves and look at what they're doing. The guitar, they've scooped out these mid areas, and in those same general areas, they've boosted them for the bass. Okay, and then, like here you have this 8 is at 5,000, it's 5K, a 1.5 boost. At 5K, we're boosting, it's at 0, it's set to 0. So we have a little boost there, but nothing there. Let's look at 7. 7's probably a better example. 3K is boosted 1.5 on the bass, but it's attenuated. It's attenuated is the word, I believe. It's cut. Cut would be probably a better for all the noobs out there, for myself. It's got a negative 2.6. It's 2.6 cut, okay? So this is how EQing works. Now, again, you can open up Reaper and use those stock settings if you want to kind of do like an auto mix. If there's a mix that you need to just bang out in a week or less, or a day or an hour, and you don't really care about the end result, and you're not really going to use your ears or anything, and you just want something that's quick and easy, Reaper has that. I don't know if other software does, but Reaper does have those presets, and it's in the compressor, it's in a lot of the other built-in plugins that you could just throw a default on there and they work together with all the other defaults. So that's kind of good. That's one of the things that I was drawn to, honestly, early on, was, hey, this is something, I mean, by looking at those 3 EQ curves, you can kind of teach yourself something about EQ. Now, the thing I mentioned earlier, because I don't want to get too far off point, I did bring something up earlier about EQ. If you boost a certain frequency, just by the nature of sound, you're also boosting or cutting other frequencies around it, the harmonics, the frequencies that are generated at the octaves, at the places where the resonances of that note are doubling up. You're also affecting those frequencies by using EQ. So you do have to be careful about boosting something too much, or not being careful about the way you use EQ. So that's my caution to you right now. EQ and frequencies are a sort of very mysterious, difficult to understand concept in early on, and even now I don't fully understand how. Okay, a good example of what I mean is if you take like a sine wave, if you take a white noise generator, pink noise generator, a tone generator, and you pick a note and you just look at the spectrum on one of these graphs and you start making cuts and stuff, it doesn't just lower the volume of the little area that you're cutting. It messes with the whole output, because all those other frequencies that are linked to the one you're messing with are being changed as well. And it has to do with the reason we see curves on here has to do with that concept I just explained. You can't make like a perfectly square cut in a frequency. It just doesn't. Sound does not work that way. So that's the little quick point I wanted to make. All right, so let's give this a quick listen. I listened to this ahead of time, and I know for sure we're going to make a couple of quick changes. Now, one of the things I wanted to go over here quickly, it's not a tool, but it's just a feature of Reaper and other software. This tool, this mono output, can be your best friend. You want to mix in mono early on. Okay, this is something you're going to hear over and over and over from beginning tutorials. Start your mix in mono so that you get your volumes a lot more dialed in, and then move to stereo and go from there. So I'm going to turn mono on. The thing is, you got to remember to turn this off. There have been times where I'm sitting and mixing and I turn mono on to kind of balance some levels, and I go, and it's 20 minutes later and I forgot that I turned mono on, and I'm starting to mess with things. Ooh, that was probably loud. I apologize for that. I can't do hand gestures on this side because the mic is there. All right, my point is, if you turn the mono on, remember to turn it off later, because you'll start to try to make changes to the mix that you're used to hearing in stereo, and you'll start to get frustrated and irritated, and then you'll remember, oh right, I toggled mono on. So I'm going to turn mono on right now. We're going to listen to it, and I'm going to try just setting the basic levels to again like a rough mix, to where everything sounds balanced to my ear, and then we can work from there. Okay, so let me close these out. I will reopen them in a second. Alright, so this is the verse. We went over markers at a certain point, so I'm going to add a marker here. You just type in M wherever the play cursor is. So this is verse 1. Alright. So right away, what I can hear is that the guitar and vocals are too loud, at least to where I have the drums set, okay? And remember, if we go back to, I forget which one it was now, I forget which episode, but at a certain point, we talked about headroom, and I dragged everything to negative, okay, I have vocals at negative 10. So my goal initially was to go to negative 8, but then I believe I brought some of them to negative 10. All right, so here's where this becomes handy. The drums, I could barely hear the drums. I could tell they're there, but they're really drowned out by guitar and vocals. So I'm going to bring these drums up too, from negative 8 to negative 6. Okay, let's go negative 599 because it won't go right to 6 for some reason. Probably because volume, I don't believe volume is linear. Perfectly linear. Who knows? All right. Negative 8 on guitar, and negative 10 on vocals. Let's listen to that for just a second. I'm starting to hear starting to hear drums a lot better. I can hear bass. It sounds like bass and guitar, or bass and drums are about equal. So now I'm just going to drag vocals and guitar down. So the way to do this at the same time is to highlight both of these by using Control. So I'll click on one of them, hold down Control, click on the second one. They'll both move exactly the same way. So if I move it down by 2 on one of them, it goes down by 2 on the other. So I'm going to move this one to negative 12. And we'll see that the other one went to, I believe, to negative. It should be negative 10. Yep, see? Okay, so let's try that. Okay, that's a lot better. I'm still having trouble hearing the bass. I mean, I hear it in there, but I want a little more. And again, I'm biased because I'm the bass player. I want to hear that bass. I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily. If I sit down later with my bandmates and we have like a mix session, which would be really nice, and they go, yeah, that bass is just, there's like a little bit too much in there, I'll drag it down a little, you know. But for right now, as I'm mixing, I want that bass to be present. So I am going to boost this bass, and this is what's great about giving that extra headroom. I'm going to boost this bass just by 1 dB. We'll bring it to negative 7 because you don't want to overwhelm it, especially because we're in mono right now. I believe when we take it out of mono, what's going to happen is the drums will probably sound a little louder because they're going to fill the mix out with the panning we did last episode, in episode 4. Alright, I'm still barely hearing the bass, but that's okay. Let's take it out of mono and just listen real quick. Not a huge difference. That actually sounds fairly good right there. That's an acceptable rough mix. Maybe a little more bass. One thing I know is when we get closer to the end of the verse, and I'll have to put a marker where the chorus kicks in. There it is. That's where the chorus starts. So I'm going to put another marker again. Put the playhead where you want it. Click M. Double click on the little head. Type in the description of it, and you could also change the color here. Yeah, I should probably change this to, let's go with orange. There we go. All right, so see, as I'm going through this, I'm keeping this stuff organized. Drum intro, pre-verse 1, verse 1, chorus. Oops, it should be chorus 1. Okay, All right. And what this does is lets you, in the future, this will just let you jump around in the project so much quicker. Instead of having to put the playhead, listen, it's just another organization thing that'll save you time. For a 10-second thing you put in early on in the project, it'll save you, tens of minutes later. Not a huge payout, but it's worth it. All right, so what I was going to say is I know that the bass, later on in this section, the bass gets overwhelmed, and it's because I'm playing these like moving notes. Comes in right about here. Right there. And in the mix, if I remember right, these get drowned out. And let's go back to mono. Again, because I'm trying to get just a pure sense of the volume without any of the panning going on from the drums, kind of confusing the levels. So I'm listening for those moving bass notes. They get drowned out. Okay, so that's something we're going to need to mess with. That's something I'm going to have to change later. What I'll probably do is split this item, put it on its own track so that I can selectively boost that, maybe using a plugin, or I'm not really sure, by normalizing it maybe. And I know there's probably someone watching that heard that and recoiled in horror. Why would you normalize it? Yeah, because it brings the overall volume up. Okay, so because I just got lost, I got off topic. The whole point of what I wanted to show you was to make the bass and the kick work together, and we threw the EQ on the guitar there. So you know what we can do right now? Let's listen to that section again, and let's toggle those EQs on and off and just see how much of a difference we notice. Okay, so this is what's nice about these. Wherever you had these open before, they pop up before. So if you organize them like this and you pop them up again, they're just right there, nice and organized. So again, guitar at the top, kick bus on the left, kick drum that is, and then the bass guitar over here. So to toggle these on and off, you just simply uncheck them. The other thing you can do, you could actually turn off you can bypass all of the plugins, all the effects, by doing that if you wanted to. So let's listen to it with EQ. Well, we just were. But I gotta toggle. Okay. Yeah, I'll have these all off. Now I'm gonna selectively turn them back on. Here we go with the kick. I did feel it kind of lift in the mix, just a little bit. Okay. It's kind of hard to tell what those do. Really, it is. And so part of that might mean that the recordings themselves are okay. They don't need drastic EQ work. So that's fine. If you can't hear that great of a change, no big deal. But at least you know that they're working. They're now not fighting each other terribly. They're not. If they are fighting in certain areas, it's already been kind of smoothed out a little bit, to a certain degree. I'm sorry about the sniffing. I keep doing that. I got to stop doing that. All right. So what I wanted to look at was, there's one more little thing. I'm going to check my time on my recorder here. I'm at 28 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and end that video, and I'm going to start the next section with some automation. Automation. What do we call this here? It's actually it's modulation, not automation. That's a different topic. So thank you for watching episode 5 of Mix with a Newb, EQ, and making items sit together in a mix. Thanks for watching. Hit like if you liked the video. Hit subscribe on my channel, please, on our channel. That would help us out a lot. And feel free to leave us a comment. Some feedback would be great. Positive or negative, we'll take all of it. Thank you for watching.